कामक्रोधोद्भवं वेगं sayuktah sa sukhi naraha. So, in the previous verse, Krishna talked about a ignorant person versus a intelligent person. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkhayonaya evate. One who is ignorant or foolish, they will take pleasure from sense gratification. Whereas the intelligent does not delight in those pleasures. Because Adi Antavantaha, it has beginning and end, and it binds us to this material existence. So the Buddha, the intelligent, na teshu ramate, they don't take pleasure in those. So this Buddha, here Krishna explains, what do the Buddha do in such cases? Shaknoti, they tolerate. The urges of the senses has to be tolerated. That's what an intelligent person does. And what happens when you tolerate is given here. Shaknoti haiva yah shodhum praksharira vimokshanat. Shaknoti means one who tolerates in this body, iha eva, in this body itself. Shodhum. Uh, Shodhum means tolerate. Shaknoti means is able to tolerate. So, Shodhum Shaknoti Prak Sharira Vimokshanat, if he can master the art of tolerating these urges of the senses before quitting one's body. Prak Sharira Vimokshanat. Sharira Vimokshanat means getting rid of the body or the death. Prak means before. So before death, if we can tolerate these urges of the senses, Kama Krododbhavam Vegam Sayuktaha sa sukhi naraha. That person is properly called a self-realized person, and he is happy in this world. So Prabhupada translates this as, before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is a yogi and he is happy in this world. So this is how one has to be happy, not pursuing whatever the urges of the senses are. One has to tolerate. So Prabhupada mentions in the purport, if one wants to make steady progress on the path of self-realization, he must try to control the forces of the material senses. There are the forces of talk, forces of anger, forces of mind, forces of the stomach, forces of the genitals, and the forces of the tongue. One who is able to control the forces of all these different senses and the mind is called Goswami or Swami. Such Goswamis live strictly controlled lives and forego altogether the forces of the senses. So there are different urges, forces of the senses. Vacho Vegam, we have the force of the talk. We want to talk anything and everything. Everywhere you see people, they are talking always. The birds are cooing, chirping. The animals are barking. The human beings are also talking. But everything they are talking is on mundane platform. Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nunam Santi Sahasrashaha. Sukadeva Goswami says there are thousands of topics for everyone to talk and hear. The newspapers are full of topics. The channel, the TV, media channels, the social media, everything is full of topics. So there is urge, so much urge to talk, except spirituality. This is called Vacho Vegam. Then Manasa, the forces of mind. Mind always thinks without any control, different thoughts, and we pursue those thoughts without control. This is called Manasa Vegam. Jihva Vegam, the forces of tongue. The tongue always asks us to give me that, give me this. Udara, the forces of the stomach or the belly. Upastha, the genitals. So all these forces are acting on this body. So people don't have any control. Whatever the Vega comes, the animal doesn't have any control. Whatever Vega comes, the animal pursues that. But a human being has to exercise control. And one who controls it, Itan Vegan yo Vishaheta, one who is not dictated by these Vega of the senses, but is controlled. Sarvamapi Mam Prithivim Sasishyat. He is actually able to make disciples all over the world, or only he can become a guru or a spiritual master. And that person is called a Goswami. Or Go means the senses, Swami means master. So one who can control these urges of the senses, he is called Goswami or Swami. It's not a title given as a fashion. One must actually be qualified to be called a Goswami. We have these six Goswamis that we follow the teachings of. Sri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath, Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath. And they led strict lives full of sense control, and yet it's not, they did not live without any happiness. Their happiness was not based on satisfying the urges of the senses. Their happiness was based on serving the orders of Krishna. Their happiness was in Krishna consciousness. Anandamdhilaba, Anandamrutabdhilahari. They were always merged in this ocean of bliss. And then Prabhupada says in the purport, this kama krododbhavam vegam, this material desires when unsatiated generate anger, and thus the mind, eyes, and chest become agitated. Therefore, one must practice to control them before one gives up this material body. So, the desire, when it is unsatiated, generates anger, and the mind, eyes, and chest become agitated, and we don't know what we will do, how we think, how we act. Therefore, one must practice to control them before one gives up this material body. One who can do this is understood to be self realized and is thus happy in the state of self realization. It is a duty of the transcendentalist to try strenuously to control desire and anger. That is why Bhagavad Gita, for that matter, all scriptures, they focus on this point: control the senses. Controlling the senses does not mean you're, as I said, deprived of happiness. Just like you go to a doctor because you are diseased, and the doctor says, no, you have such and such disease. You cannot eat this, you cannot eat this, you cannot eat this, you cannot do this, you cannot run like this, you cannot do like this. So much of restriction. Oh, I'm deprived of that, this, but you eat healthy. So why there is restriction in the first place? Because you are diseased. If you eat whatever you want, the disease is going to go up. It's not going to come down. A person having typhoid should not eat anything and everything that he wants. It will become aggravated and the person may die. He has to fast and eat very, very limited food. So that is why the control is given in scriptures. Urges of the senses are like the feast for a diseased person. And if he engages in that, we become more and more diseased in this material world. So, first, there has to be restriction, sense control, or in other words, there has to be regulation. We have to regulate. That is why there are regulative principles. The four regulative principles: no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit relations, no gambling. These are the basic things. And if we can control these, then there are mental things we have to control, these anarthas, habits. So, gradual regulation. Because we are diseased, we need regulation. So, how do we control this anger and desire? So, Bhishma Dev, when he was passing away from this world, the Pandavas go to him, and he gives a principle to control this anger. For example, he says, to conquer anger, one has to practice the art of forgiveness. It's a very interesting principle. To conquer anger, we have to practice forgiveness. Because something happens, doesn't meet our expectation, we become angry. Hey, why did you do this? I told you to. So I had a realization when I was driving one time, and many times you see the car in front is going very slow, and you are stuck. You cannot go left, right, and this guy is not moving, and you start to honk, or you express frustration, and you pass and you look him in the eye, and then he turns out to be an old man or a new learner or whoever it is. So one time I was driving very slowly because I was carrying a tulsi pot next to me to the temple. So I had to be very careful. So if I apply sudden brake or drive improperly, the pot may fall down, and I don't want to do that. And so I was going very slow, and then the car behind was honking. And then I was thinking, if I was in that situation and if I also honked without knowing, obviously he didn't know what I was going through. So whoever honks, they don't know what the person is undergoing in front. There may be several reasons. Everyone is fighting a battle in this world. He's a complete stranger. He's not doing it out of purpose, want to stall you. So forgiveness. We have to forgive. Okay, let it go. It is the will of the Lord that I have to go a little slowly. I have to learn patience. I have to learn how to overcome anger. The Lord is giving me opportunity. Forgive. So this is how one can conquer anger. Of course, when one, it's not that you cannot express anger at all. Anger has its use. What this verse is saying is, don't be used by the anger. In general, we get used by the anger. Suddenly something happens and we become angry and act without control. This is called being used by the anger. But you can be completely in control and can also use anger. Like Hanuman, Arjuna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They all used anger. They were all controlled. They had nothing else apart from devotion to the Lord. But when needed, they used anger to serve the Lord. Hanuman used his anger to burn the Lanka. Arjuna used his anger to kill the opponents in service to the Lord. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who said we have to tolerate, we have to become as tolerant as a tree and as humble as a blade of grass. But he expressed his extreme anger and he was about to kill Jaga and Madhai because they were blasphemers of devotees. So anger has its use. A parent has to become angry to chastise the child as a duty. Sometimes the parents, out of anger, they get used by the anger, they lose control and they start to beat and they don't know what they are talking. Their mind, their eyes and chest become polluted, as Prabhupada is saying. That is called being used by the anger. But if you carefully, the parent decides consciously, no, I have to express my anger. I have to act like this to show a lesson. There is a purpose to my anger. That is called using the anger. The police have to use the anger to curb a criminal. So anger has its use. So what this verse is talking about is the force anger which makes us do improper things. Prabhupada talks about, or Krishna talks about in Bhagavad Gita, that once you speak something out of influence of anger, it cannot be taken back. Anudvegakaram vakyam. Anudvegakaram. Vegakaram vakyam means the vakyam, the words spoken out of anger cannot be taken back. So there was this boy who was struggling to control his anger. And to help him, the father said, my dear son, I'll tell you what to do when we are angry. So he took him to the backyard. There is a wooden fence. And he gave a big hammer and some nails. And he said, whenever you become angry, come here. And with all your anger and force, drive this nail into that fence. And he started to do that. The first day he did 20 nails. 20 times he became angry. And as every day it progressed, after a few days, he started to get down a little bit. The number came to 10 and 5 and so on and so forth. And he said, okay, actually, it's helping me. And it's helping me identify how many times I'm becoming angry. The father said, good. Now start to take out those nails. And then the boy went and started to take out the nails. It took several days because he hit them so hard. He had to find tools to pluck them out and all of that. And after several days, he came and told the father, yes, I removed all of them. And then the father took him to the backyard and showed him, see all this wood, even though there is no nail right now. You hit the nail and you took it out. See the scar on these pieces of wood. The scar is always lying. The scar never goes away. So the damage once done with your angry nature, with the words that you use out of anger, always does permanent damage. So we have to be very cautious. Anudvegakaram vakyam satyam. So we should, when we are speaking, it should not agitate others. Of course, if you are a spiritual master or a parent, or a chastiser who has responsibility to your subject, you should become angry and you have a duty to chastise. But one who is not as such related to us, one should speak very carefully. Anudvegakaram vakyam, satyam, you have to speak the truth. Priyahitam, what is beneficial to them. So one has to tolerate, as the example is given of a tree, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the example. Trunadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishnuna. The tree tolerates. As an example, one should take. One should tolerate these urges if we want to become self realized, of course. If we want to progress in spirituality, we have to tolerate these urges of the senses. Titikshavaha karunikaha suhrudaha sarvadehinam ajatachatravaha shantaha sadhavo sadhubhushanaha. So, this desire, as Krishna says here, kama krododbhavam vegam, the forces of desire and anger. So, we discussed how to control anger by understanding that it causes permanent damage and by understanding the art of forgiveness and the desire, how to control the desire. Before that, I'll explain a instructive story about a monkey, how they catch these monkeys. So this monkey, so they put this big glass jars, heavy jars, with an open mouth. That mouth is a little, the neck is short, so the monkey can put its hand inside and holds this candy or whatever attractive, alluring food. But it holds this object and it tries to take out from the jar, but it gets stuck. It can get out of the jar only when it leaves the fist or leaves the object. But it keeps on holding it. And it is so enamored by getting that object that it doesn't let go. And this guy is coming to catch he's hiding and he's coming to catch. The monkey is trying to pull its hand out, holding that candy, and even the blood is coming, scratching. It doesn't let go. And it cannot run away because the jar is so heavy. And finally gets caught. You see how we pursue things out of our karma, our desires. And that's what binds us to this material world. We get caught by Maya. We cannot, Krishna is trying to release us. Leave it, tolerate it. This is just an itching sensation. It'll go away. Shaknoti haiva eha shodum. Even though principle is very simple, tolerate, don't pursue it. But we cannot, just like the monkey cannot. I saw one cartoon. Somebody is falling off a cliff. And this man from the cliff, he's stable on the cliff and he is trying to pull this man from falling from the cliff with one hand. So this man falling, he is giving one hand and this man is pulling him out, pulling him above the cliff. And this man on the other hand, the falling man, with the other hand, the bottom hand, he is holding on to his big baggage. And this man who is trying to pull, hey, get rid of the baggage. I cannot, your weight is too heavy. You have to get rid of the baggage. Only then I can pull. This man is not giving up. So that's our situation. Krishna is, through Bhagavad Gita, the spiritual master, through the instructions of Krishna, trying to get us out of this material world, pull us. from this danger of the cliff of falling into this material existence. But we are very heavy. Why? Because we hang on to our desires, we hang on to our sense gratificatory affairs. So God helps those who help themselves. We help ourselves by following the instructions of Krishna, then Krishna can help us. If we don't do what Krishna is asking and still, oh Krishna, I am surrendered, you're not helping me. But how are you surrendered if you're not following what Krishna is saying? How are you surrendered? So the beauty of Krishna consciousness is, unlike other spiritual paths, we don't lose anything by tolerating these urges. We have to dovetail this desire, this anger, these forces of the senses have to be dovetailed. Kama Krishna karma arpane. Use everything for, you dovetail it for Krishna. At least initially, like even Ekadashi, for example, you cannot tolerate the urge of hunger. At least you make nice non-grain items and eat. Offer it as prasadam and eat. Isn't it? So nice dovetailing you can do. Hearing music. Dovetail it by hearing, especially nowadays, there is so much of options for Krishna consciousness music. So, like that, instead of completely engaging on the material realm, dovetail it. This is only available in Krishna consciousness. And when you get the taste in Krishna, then you can completely get rid of any of these urges. And when you get the taste for chanting the holy names, taste for serving Krishna, you become attached to it, and that's what drives you instead of these forces of the senses. Then sayuktaha sa sukhi naraha. That person is a proper yogi. That person is the happy in this world. I'll stop here. Anyone has any questions or comments? Okay. Bhagavad
Hare
Gita.
Krishna Prabhuji, Sadhu Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
All good special Lord, please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhuji, regarding the anger you mentioned today and senses controlling. So sometimes dealing with non-devotees, uh, we have to draw a line to show them it's not okay uh, and show our anger in a way that they understand that we need our space and then we need so and so things to continue our bhakti, even including within the family, not considering outside family. Outside family, we don't care. I mean, we don't need to explain them. But inside family, sometimes we have to explain and we have to show them this is important for us. So in that case, is it being if you're so nice, then taking advantage of us, and if we are not if you are showing it, then is it considered like showing our not controlling our senses? That difference I'm always getting doubt. But otherwise you cannot use it in your Krishna consciousness. You cannot use the time for you to
Right.
be in Krishna consciousness if you say yes to so many things. So how do we deal to who is trying to progress in Krishna consciousness, dealing with non-devotees within the family, knowingly if they attack you like that?
Yeah, as I said, you have to, on purpose, you have to evaluate how to use your anger or words. You can be used by anger, or you can use your anger, or you can be used by the forces of the senses, or you can use the senses to do what you want. So there has to be a careful thought and response. Like if some situation is going out of hand to the extent that you are not able to peacefully practice Krishna consciousness, So you evaluate, oh, I need to communicate this, I need to put my foot down. And you also evaluate what will be the repercussions of that. Is that a close member that I want close to my heart? What will happen if I say this, say that? But I have to do this. Pray to the Lord. So you're acting not out of impulse. You're not reacting rashly. You're carefully analyzing and responding and doing what needs to be done. And for that, you may even need to consult a devotee to help you how to address that situation. So by doing all of this, you're you're as if you're like doing, but at the same time doing with careful analysis. So this is still control. As I said, tolerance doesn't mean tolerate always. You have to use anger also sometimes, or you have to use the forces of the senses sometimes to get the task done. But that has to be done with careful contemplation.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanand.